Welcome to another of our special interviews here at the Government Information Service. At present, we are located at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Ministerial Complex to speak with Ambassador Glen Noel, Grenada's ambassador to the Republic of Cuba, who came home for the holidays and is already preparing to depart to return to his substantive duties. Mr. Noel will give us an insight today as it relates to the Grenada-Cuba relationship, what's happening across there with our students, plans and programs, the visit by Prime Minister Honorable Deacon Mitchell in 2024, among others. Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I want to use this opportunity to wish you a happy new year, a lot of good health and prosperity to you and your family, and also to the entire population of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Happy New Year, everyone. Okay. So for me, it has been a journey heading this position as Grenada's ambassador to Cuba. And service has always been my mantra, and in everything that I've done and doing, I try to put my best effort forward. And so it has been just a little under 2 years, and I think we have made great stride as Grenada-Cuba relationship is concerned. The highlight of that has been the signing of several new agreements, bilateral agreements between Grenada and Cuba in the field of health, in the field of education, in the field of agriculture, also in tourism and culture. And so we look forward to implementing and executing those agreements that has the potential to bring benefits to both countries. As it relates to some of the things that has happened, we have the Cuba Grenada Medical Assistance Program as part of our overall effort in terms of giving our people affordable health care. In 2024, we have seen an increase from 7 persons in 2023 to 16 persons who have received medical treatment successfully in Cuba. We have also seen us providing citizens with consultation and other medical advice. 20 persons benefited from that process. So that program is going pretty well. Very early, we had a couple persons who came and died, and that was simple because they left Grenada at a very, very late state. Okay. You know, and there's nothing much that could have been done. But we have reviewed the protocol and to put measures in place that will give us a better opportunity to identify persons who are most eligible in terms of the treatment is available. They're a stage where there is hope that they can recover well, and I think we have done pretty well where this is concerned.
Okay. Ambassador, just before you go further into some of the agreements and the opportunities that Grenadians received thus far during your, as you said, just under 2 years, I just want you to go back a bit and speak to actually you as the ambassador settling in to your position in Cuba. We know that English is your first language. Spanish is the main language over there. Speak to us about settling in and getting everything in place in order to be able to execute all those things that you just mentioned there.
Indeed, it really was a touching moment and experience. Prior to my arrival in Cuba in March of 2023, the last time I've been to Cuba was sometime around September of 1983. So it was over 40 years since I've been there. So it was a sort of emotional experience, all being in a different capacity. I think my stint as a senator and minister of government would have prepared me to a certain extent, although it's a complete different role, being for the first time serving in the diplomatic field. I knew that it was going to be a challenge, but I always backed myself to adapt quickly. You know, life is about learning and it's about being flexible. And so I must say, I want to really congratulate the staff, the Cuban support staff that I met. Three of them spoke very good English, and so it was easy to communicate. And so I decided then that I would try to speak as much as I can in Spanish to them, and they speak as much as they can in English.
To you?
Yes. And so I'm able to communicate. I'm able to express myself. I'm able to appreciate and to learn and to understand what is going on. And I think I've done reasonably well. Most of the basic things I can communicate. But it was a challenge. But it was a challenge that was overcome. Arriving at that period, we had to put things in place. The first challenge was really to get to understand and to know the stuff, to do an assessment of what the situation was like, and to determine a course of action. And I think, again, we did a job as a team. I believe a lot in teamwork. I believe that as a leader, you must inspire others, and it's not about management, but it's about building a team and leading and really working with others. And I've gotten tremendous support from the staff so far. They share the vision that I brought. I must also say too that I was in very close contact with the former ambassador, Clarice Charles, Ambassador Clarice Charles. And I received a brief from her before I went up, and we remain in communication. And it's always good to build on continuity. No man is an island, and government is continuous, and we have to build and foster the kind of relationship that do not allow narrow partisan politics to get in the way of the progress and the development of the country. And that was a very important lesson in terms of working with others who have trodden the path before, you know, so that was very, very critical. And immediately we set about to develop a work program to determine what will be our strategic priorities. And we developed those priorities and the actions that follow. And so our work is guided by those basic strategic priorities that we have in the different areas in terms of implementing.
So you've mentioned a number of bilateral discussions, signing of MOUs, and so I want us to spend a little bit of time to speak to the students who are presently studying in Cuba in terms of the relationship with the embassy and how they are progressing, because we do know that there is a difference in economic status of both countries, and by extension the lifestyle and what is available and what is not available. But how is that aspect of things going from your end to ensure that the students are comfortable so that they can really make use of that opportunity that was given to them?
Well, I consider the students as part of family, and I treat them as such. And the fortunate thing is that nearly every one of them, the over 40-something students that have been there since I've arrived, I can relate one way or the other. Either I knew them before, or I knew the mother, the father, the sister, the brother. Once they say the family name, I'm able to trace who they are and so on. And I think that is because of the wide experience I've had in different aspects of Grenadian life. I think we first have to appreciate the contribution that the government and people of Cuba are making towards the human resource development, the human capital of Grenada. And so far, hundreds of Grenadians have studied successfully in Cuba, and they can be found in every aspect of the Grenadian life and the Grenadian society and the economy. We have had economists, we have had medical doctors, nurses, engineers, agricultural specialists, and so forth. So as far as health and education is concerned, they have made a tremendous contribution to the development, not just to Grenada, but to the region and indeed to the entire world. And this has been and is a great sacrifice. Sometimes it's important to measure what somebody gives, not because of the excesses or the amount that they have, but the willingness to share the little that they have with others. And so that solidarity from the government and people of Cuba must be seen in this light. The situation in Cuba is very challenging at this particular moment, and perhaps has always been, because of the U.S. blockade, which affects tremendously Cuba's ability to trade, and trade is a vital part of the development of any country. It affects the financial system itself in terms of foreign exchange and so, and it affects their social programs that they are well known for, the social safety net in terms of free education, the delivery of free health care. And also, we have seen a rapid increase in inflation and of course, sometimes the scarcity of goods and services. They are also experiencing some problems with energy. One can say there is an acute energy crisis. And I think all that tells you a lot about the spirit of the Cuban people, because despite all of those challenges, they are able to share, and they have thousands of students from all over the world studying there at the moment. So for most of the Grenadian students, it's about getting climatized. It's about adapting well to the language. As you know, they spend the first year essentially
the language.
Yeah. And then secondly, the culture. I mean, we principally was influenced a lot by our association with Britain and speaking English and so, and whereas the Latin American countries, most of them influence is particularly Spanish, not just the language, but the culture and so. But we are one people from the Caribbean, and the world is like one global village, so it's easy to know what is happening and to relate to what is happening. Obviously, there are some sacrifices that have to be made, and we try to orient the students properly to appreciate the new environment that they are in. And by and large, they have adapted pretty well to that. The government offers some assistance as it relates to a stipend, and we have been able to successfully negotiate for additional assistance, what we call a hardship allowance, and that has helped pretty well. We have had our second annual container shipment of barrels, and we do that to ensure that the students are able to improve their living and studying condition, basic foodstuffs, things from Grenada that is in keeping with what they are used to. And many of I want to congratulate the families and relatives, parents, who have contributed in the private sector in Grenada so that we are able to successfully have the container shipped to Cuba on 2 separate occasions. And all of that has assisted in the overall development. We provide consular services, counseling We have represented them at the school whenever there is an issue or problem, and we have involved them in the general community life in Cuba. So when we celebrate activities, for example, like our Independence Day celebration, the students are part and parcel of it. So what we try to do is to build a community. We also have a platform on WhatsApp, 2 separate platforms, where we communicate regularly. So we send messages and they send and we communicate. We know what is going on with them.
In 2024, is it 2024 or the latter part of 2023? The time slipped by so quickly, but I want you to speak a bit to, I think it was 2023, the visit by Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell in terms of its significance and, you know, further solidifying Grenada's commitment in terms of its appreciation and its diplomatic relations with Cuba.
Right. At the visit occurred in 2024. It was a very important state official visit, an official visit of the Prime Minister. Although he visited Cuba on 2 separate occasions prior to that. He attended the G77 and China conference, and he also attended an ALBA meeting. But that was his first official visit. And official visits are extremely important because they signal and strengthen the kind of relation that exists, and it's a time for deepening acquaintances, getting to know each other better, and also an opportunity for developing new agreements. So that was a very important visit. The visit was essentially organized in 3 different areas.
Okay.
The Cuban government, so there was what one can say an official meeting with the president, followed by a cocktail reception, and there were meetings with several different departments and ministries where the specific agreements were signed. A very important aspect is the one on health, and I think at this particular moment, Grenada is looking to register and to make use of a drug that the Cuban pharmaceutical industry is producing called the hepatitis B. This drug helps to cure the ulcer that is associated with diabetes. It is injected into the ulcer and it cures the ulcer, so it avoids amputation. And so if we can make this drug available in Grenada, we can have a great reduction in the number of persons who have had to lose their limbs and so forth. So that can help tremendously. We have been able to negotiate an increase and greater diversity in the number of students that study in Cuba. Almost 80% or more of all the students have been in the medical field.
Right.
And while this is extremely important in the sense that we have to continue to build and strengthen our healthcare system, but the healthcare system often cannot generate sufficient finance to sustain itself. And so the productive sector is important to produce, as it relates to agriculture and other areas, to have the money to spend on health. So we have said to them, we also need to have some more persons in the field of engineering, mechanical, electrical, in agriculture and in several areas, and they are willing to ensure that that is expanded. And as I said, in 2023, 11 scholarships were offered, but in 2024 we had 22 positions offered. Unfortunately, we were not able to take up all of the positions, so it means that we have to do some work to make use of the opportunity. Something that is extremely important to highlight is that on average, a student who goes to UE outside of a government scholarship would spend approximately $250,000 to $300,000 for their education. And there are people all up to the adulthood life, both in Grenada and in even places like the United States, that are paying back the bank as it relates to student loan. So getting an opportunity to study for ordinary poor people, children, is extremely important. And so as it relates to that economic side of it. And so being able to make the best use of those scholarship opportunities is critical. We not only look for opportunities as it relates to Cuba, we use the space in Cuba. The diplomatic community in Cuba is very active and is one of the most active in the world. There are over 120 countries that have diplomatic missions and relations with Cuba. And so we use that space to also negotiate with other countries as well to get scholarship opportunities. So at this moment, we're looking forward to some opportunities from Malaysia, from Austria, from Romania, and these are all part of the discussion that we have had with them, Azerbaijan as well. So there are other opportunities, not just from the Cuban government, but other countries that exist there as well.
So, so far you're saying that things has been moving along smoothly for you. You mentioned a lot through the different bilaterals and the MOUs and so, but in a general sense, how do we weigh the pros and cons in terms of the benefits, Cuba to Grenada, Grenada to Cuba?
Well, I think over the years, the relationship has been a little bit one-sided in terms of the balance. I think most of the CARICOM countries have gotten more from Cuba materially than they are able to give or has given. However, our value comes in moral and political support in the multilateral world as it relates to organizations like the UN, where even though we are small, we all have a vote, and we have been very supportive of Cuba, calling for an end to the blockade and all of the other issues relating to unfairness as practiced by the United States and some of the other countries. So I think we are valuable in that sense, and we are also valuable. There is an opportunity for greater trade and cultural exchange and so forth. But generally, if you put it in context, I would say that we have benefited materially much more than they have from our relationship in that sense. And so, but we must also bear in mind too that a number of Cuban doctors, the medical brigade and other engineers are here, and they are also provided with a salary, a stipend. It may not be the highest in the world, but they are able to raise some money to feed the family and to take care of things. So that is a growing area as well. So I think Grenada needs Cuba and Cuba needs Grenada. And I think the people of Grenada and Cuba have had real historic ties from the days of the revolution, the very strong and dynamic relationship that existed between Prime Minister Maurice Bishop and Fidel Castro. And the people of Cuba has a great love and warmth for the people of Grenada. They remember that part of our history. And the visit of the Prime Minister helped to solidify that as well. Yeah.
So as we wrap, looking forward to 2025, because we've just literally started,
Yes. Well, as I said, our work is based on our strategic priorities. We develop a work plan and we have a direction, we have a vision in terms of what it is we're trying to do. As our vision, we see ourselves as a provider of high quality diplomatic representation and consular services based on the, I would say, the developmental priorities of Grenada. So certainly we started as it relates to seeking opportunities for the marketing of Grenadian products in the Cuban space and with other countries as well. We had recently the Chamber of Commerce participating in the FIHAV, which is an international trade fair that exposed Grenada to over 60 other countries and over 400 and so other companies, from electronics and technological goods to food and equipment and so forth. And we had a booth exposing our spices and Grenadian rum and products. We have begun dialogue with several companies and organizations who have an interest in getting exotic fruits and seafood and rum from Grenada. So we hope to build on that. We were able to raise some money as part of our effort to mobilize financial resources and technical resources as part of the effort to assist with the recovery following Hurricane Beryl. So we did receive some money from some countries which came down to Grenada. We're looking forward to continue to strengthen the relationship in expressions like celebrating our independence. Last year we had a pretty good independence celebration ceremony. This year we will be doing so as well. It will be on the 11th. We have celebrated important historical dates with great significance for Grenada, like March 13th. Okay. Last year we had a round table panel discussion inviting intellectuals and so forth to participate. We also celebrate Heroes Day. We term it as Memorial Day, where we pay tribute to the late Prime Minister Maurice Bishop and his colleagues who died, but also the Cuban workers who perished on October 25th and the Grenadian soldiers. And we have done that annually in a row 2 years, and we'll continue to do that. So there's a path. There's a number of activities that we have already planned out. We have been a very integral part of the CARICOM community. In fact, I am chairperson of the events planning committee. So for example, we just celebrated Cuba CARICOM 52nd anniversary of diplomatic relations. And we had a very good cultural activity with all of the CARICOM countries setting up a booth to display their products and food and so. We had a very popular Grenadian fashion designer work on display with 12 young ladies modeling with her clothing line, and that went down pretty well, a lot of interest and so. So I feel comfortable. I mean, one must always strive to do better and to work hard, but I feel comfortable with what we have achieved so far, given all of the circumstances and so. And I think that we would be moving forward. We have some issues that we need to resolve, and we're looking for ways and means of working closely with the Cuban government and people. I think it was a very good gesture of the government to offer some support to them following the spate of the two hurricanes that they have had and also the earthquake. And it really demonstrates how resilient they are as a people. I'm also thinking about inviting a couple Calypsonians to come up to participate in our independence celebration. I've not raise the money and see where it's coming from, but I'm hopeful that I will be able to do that. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, viewers. That was Ambassador Glen Noel, Grenada's ambassador to the Republic of Cuba. He gave us an overview of the past 2 years in Cuba as to what has been happening as it relates to scholarships, the overall in terms of the relations, the signing of memorandum of understandings, and the benefits, the mutual benefits that has been derived between both countries as they continue to strengthen their relationship. I am Sharian Noel, thanking you very much for viewing this special interview with Grenada's ambassador to the Republic of Cuba, Ambassador Glen Noel.